Good morning, players. I'm Laramie, and this program is Laramie's Infinite Neck. We're going to go over the note naming in Infinite Neck for a quick second, and then we're going to go into why the shapes appear on a standard tuning guitar, like your A shape, your C shape, your E shape. All right, so if we look, what I've got on the top here is a P46. That's a perfect fourths tuning 6-string guitar. On the bottom, I've got an S6. That is a standard tuning 6-string guitar. So, and within these cells, I've got notes. If I click a note, I get a note. Here I've got a G, a C, and an F. So that's not a chord. Take the F out, now I've got a C, E, G. That's a C chord. And you see that in perfect fifths, it's always this shape. The C there, the G directly below it, and then the E off a little bit. So it makes this little shape, which we recognize from a standard tuning guitar as an E shape. And on a perfect fourth tuning, because there's no major third between these two strings, you get this same shape all the way up the neck. Okay? On the standard tuning, you get the E shape down here for the C. Most of us don't play the G unless you reach around with your pinky and get it. Most of us play this C, that E, and that C. In other words, if I highlight them, this C, that E, and that C. That's what we call a C shape. We let this E ring open, we let this G ring open, and most of us palm mute or something this G. But if you want a nice fat chord, you can always reach around with your pinky and play this C and G together, and you get a nice G on the bottom. Okay. So what are these numbers? This is let's look at this one. This is a G. Let's start with this one. This is a C. This is the root of the chord. If I look over on the left here, I see that I'm in the key of C. So therefore, plus 0, C plus 0 is the note we're on. C plus, if I were to add this note, C plus 1 is a C sharp. So the plus 1 means a half step. That's one half step. If I were to add this note, it's plus 2, that's a D. So that's this note, that note, and that note. I've got 60, 61, 62. Those are MIDI numbers. So C, middle C, is a MIDI 60. C sharp is a 61, D is a 62, and so on. So all the MIDI numbers start from like 22 or 24 and go up to 120, something like that. But at any rate, they're always, middle C is always a 60. And then every MIDI number takes you up in standard intonation, a half step for every integer. So I show that in Infinite Neck as plus 0 is the note of the key you're on. Plus 1 is a half step from that. Plus 2 is a whole step, 2 half steps up from that. 3 half steps would be a minor, a D sharp, which we'll get over. There's another video about sharps and flats. All right. And you see the MIDI number goes from 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. Okay, so what's interesting then is if you go up, let's take these others out, back to our C, if I were to go up to an F, I add 5 to the MIDI number. And here that is 0 for the C, plus 5 gets me to an F. That's because C sharp is plus 1, it's 61. D is plus 2, so it's MIDI 62. D sharp is plus 3. E is plus 4. So that says if you take a C and you go up 5 half steps, you'll be on the 4 chord. The 4 note of this scale, which is the F. And let's look at here we are looking at C is over in the left-hand side of each square. Each cell here is a fret. The fret is technically right there. So this is kind of where you would put your finger for a C. And if I go up the scale and I get to an F, the F is the 4, the E is the major 3, the D is the minor 3 shown with a little m. Sorry, D sharp is a minor 3. The D is a 2. And I use this 2 starts with T, so Greek letter tau becomes flat, the flat 2 or the flat 9. I use a tau for. All right, and then there's your major 7 down at B. So, but we know we're up to 4 is F in C, which is subdominant. And if I go here, that is a tritone, which I use this Greek symbol for. And there's your 5. That's the G. So in C, C is the 1, F is the 4, G is the 5. And if I look at those with function numbers, C is the 1, so it's plus 0. The F is plus 5, 5 half steps up from there. And the G is plus 7. And the MIDI numbers work out 60, 65, and 67. Now let's get into the shapes. All right, so I'll take these notes out of here. 1, and I'll go to highlights. So there's my 1. There's a C. Most of us play it in cowboy chord position, which is this C, this E, and that's P4. Sorry. Most of us play it on a standard tuning, this C, this E, that C, let the G ring out, let the E ring out as open strings. So here we can see that if we actually reach down and grab this G, there's the E shape. So let's show an E shape. I'm going to do a new section. And an E shape would be put an E on it, use a B, and then sneak over here and get a G sharp. Because E is a sharps key. It's got a D sharp in it. So there's your E shape. And notice that on a standard tuning guitar, the E's are kind of in different shapes up here. But here's an E shape. Those 3. Here's an E shape. Those 3. And when we go up to here, this is not an E shape. That's an A shape. 3 in the middle, you usually get it with your ring finger or your pinky barring across, and then come over with your index finger and hit these 2. So if we did fingering, we would say finger 1 is here, and a lot of us play it with our 3rd finger here, and here, and here. You could also play it with your pinky, 4th finger there, 4th finger there. Okay? And if I turn name notes off for a second, then you can see just the fingerings. Okay? All right. And let's go back to, whoops, that's right. Let's go back to the shapes. So in P4, which is up here, there's an E shape. There's an E shape. Here's the top of an E shape. Here's the bottom of an E shape. There's the top of an E shape. Here's the bottom of an E shape. Goes all the way up. Here's another E shape. These are all C chords. But if I look in standard tuning, I get the C shape down here. I get the E shape for a C chord down here. But when I play it here, if I play that with my index finger, and I play these with my ring finger or my pinky, or I could, if I'm really dexterous, I could do a bar chord and hit that one. So we call this an A shape because normally an A is down at the bottom. Do a new section. Normally an A would be here. So I'm changing keys. There. Okay, now this says A, so I'm in the key of A, so it's 1, 3, 5. There we are. There's the A. So now you can see that it's 1, 3, 5. Oh, I've got a 1, 5, and a 5 in the open position. So if I just finger this, some people cram 1, 2, and 3 together. I don't even know how to do that. I do it with my pinky. I'm going to do it, with my ring finger. I'm going to do it with my ring finger. So that would be 3, there, there, and there. And then just leave these other strings open. There's your basic A shape. But that's because we lost our note numbers. There we go. That's because if I take all this out and now go to my E shape, and let's go to the key of C, key of A, let's go to the key of A for this section. There it is. A, C sharp, E. So A is 0. The C is +4. Right? So we said the 4, the subdominant, is +5. And we said the 5th, the dominant, is +7. And so the +4 is a major third. So here I am in A. There's my A shape. But it's still the same as a major chord because this shape is now taken because this is only +3, so that becomes the minor third in the key of A. And I can show that if I turn off the function offset, if I go to function instead of note name. Nope. If I go to function plus offset, okay, it's a 1, which is +0. It's a 5, which is +7, and then the 4, which is a D, would be +5, and it's MIDI 62. It's getting a little wide in here, or a narrow. Let's make it wider. Okay. Same display, I just made the notes all wider, so we're only going up to the 5th fret here. Here we are in A with a 1 +0, the 4 +5, so MIDI 57 +5 is 62. 1 to the 5 is 7 half steps, so that's 0 +7, 57 is 5 up from 52. And then we see that the minor third is +3. It's 3 half steps up. So if we started in 57, we're on 60, like that. If I wanted a major third, take those out. 57 and 4 are 61, 1, 3, 5. That's it. And then you can also see, let's go more frets. You can also see some of the other shapes. So there's my A shape. Here, let's highlight these. There's my A shape. 1, 3, 5. Here's my E shape. 1, 3, 5. And my F shape, which is really a C shape. And the F major 7, my favorite chord, would be over here. There's how a lot of us play a major 7, is just in a standard tuning, these top 3. All right. And I think that'll be enough for this video. Thanks, and welcome to Infinite Neck.